Hello, this is the Getting Started video for the Roxy deployer with MarkLogic. I'll go through the deployer's capabilities and then we'll download the script and create a project. The ML script is the central way that you interact with the deployer. And so these commands that are listed here are all things you can pass to the ML script to tell it to do something. You can get that list also by just typing ML at the command line, and it'll give you a list of commands. And if you type ML command -H, then it'll give you some help for that specific command. So the things across the top are things that we commonly do over the lifetime of a given project. We'll start with ML new, and that'll reach out to GitHub and actually download a copy of Roxy to give you some initial files. That'll give you a basic configuration, in some cases some source code, and it'll do some initial configuration of that. So for instance, with the new command, you can give it the name of your application and it'll put that into your config file for you. After you've got your initial set of configuration files and maybe a little bit of source, you might bootstrap. And the idea of bootstrapping is that it will apply a project's configuration to the target server. From there, you might use extend or create. These are two different scaffolding commands. So these will generate a bit of source code for you, give you a starting point so that you can edit rather than trying to write something from scratch. And having done that, you can then deploy modules. So ML, some target environment, deploy modules. That'll take your source code and put it into the modules database on the MarkLogic instance. The modules database was created by the bootstrap command. You can also ML some environment deploy content, which will take the contents of your data directory and put it into your content database. That content database is also created by the bootstrap command. From that point, you'd likely run some tests and then make some modifications to the code and then deploy modules again. So you go into that cycle there at that point. The ML script knows about three different environments initially: local, dev, and prod. Local is presumed to be the local machine on which you're working, but it can be whatever you point it to. And a lot of these commands are sensitive to the environment. So for instance, when we tell it to bootstrap, we can tell it to bootstrap some specific environment. If you need to add additional environments, that can be done too. So looking at the other commands that are available, the wipe command, this is kind of a sharp tool. It will completely remove your application from the MarkLogic server that you target. So it's essentially the opposite of Bootstrap. So Bootstrap will create application servers, a content database, a modules database, users, roles for your application. And wipe will clear all those off completely. Clean is similar in that it takes some stuff off, but all it does is empty out the contents of either your content database or your modules database, depending on what you specify. It leaves the configuration alone. It does not delete the database, it just deletes the content. Info is a command you can use to see what Roxy thinks are the property values for a specific environment. So we're going to have one set of files, and then you've got a separate property file for each one of the environments. And so in order to make sure that those are coming through with the values you expect, you can use the info command. Restart will tell a MarkLogic instance to restart itself. That's often useful after wipe. Because when an application server is removed from MarkLogic, MarkLogic needs to restart in order to fully clear that application server out. The Roxy deployer has been integrated with Record Loader and XQSync along with Corb. So Record Loader and XQSync are a couple of tools we can use to push some content into MarkLogic. The init command is actually run by new. When we say new, it handles init also. What that does is it creates the initial configuration files, and it'll create a couple of directories for you as well. The init cpf command is similar. It will create a config file to help you set up a set of CPF pipelines. CPF will be dealt with in a future video. Okay, so there are three different kinds of applications you can use Roxy to build. The first type is a REST application, and this relies on the MarkLogic REST API. We use xQuery here to extend the REST API. Those are referred to as service extensions in the MarkLogic documentation. And this is really the primary way that we're intended to work with MarkLogic as of version 6. There's also, Roxy will do an MVC xQuery application, and so it'll provide you an application structure around the MVC application pattern. And this approach does not use the REST API at all, and was primarily used with versions before MarkLogic 6. Roxy itself goes back to MarkLogic 4.2 and still works with that. And there's also the hybrid type of application where you get the best of both worlds. So we get the REST API gets set up, and also you get the xQuery MVC structure. So if you're not sure which you want, you can always go with hybrid and then use whichever one feels appropriate. Quick note that the MVC stuff is still supported with MarkLogic 6.0 or 6 Plus, and I expect that to continue. So it's still around. There are a couple of prerequisites that you'll need to run Roxy. The first obvious one is that you'll need a MarkLogic instance somewhere for Roxy to set up with your environment and to deploy source code and such like too. So you might even have more than one of these. You might have something on your laptop, and you might have a dev environment and a production environment. You'll need Ruby because the ML script itself relies on Ruby for all of its functionality. Then there are a couple of features that require a Git client or Java. The Git client is required by the ML new command, otherwise it doesn't use it. Java is used by record loader, xqsync, and corb. And so, naturally enough, in order to use those features inside of Roxy, you'll need Java to be available. Okay, so let's go ahead and get the ML script and use that to create a project. So what we're looking at right now is the GitHub homepage for the Roxy project, and you'll see that right in the base directory there's an ML script and an ml.bat. So if you're using Mac or Linux, you'll go with ML. If you're on Windows, ml.bat. You'll get the same features either way. I'm going to switch over to the dev branch. That's what I use for most of my work. I like to have the latest and greatest, so I'll use that. I'm going to click on the ML script, and the raw page will let you just get it as an actual file. So download, and then it will save as. And we'll notice that, well, so first off, I want to put it in my bin directory. That's already in my path. We'll notice that the browser is helpfully adding a .txt extension, which I don't want, but if I get rid of it, it just puts it back. So I'll just save it like that, and then I'll move it. So ml.txt becomes ml. So if you've got your bin directory in your path already, you can put it there. If not, you put it somewhere else so it'll be in your path, or if that doesn't work, just save it somewhere and use the absolute path for it. Now on Linux, I also need to set the permissions for it. Notice it does not have execute permissions, so let's do that real quick. Alright, so now I've got the ML script in my path, and we can do something with it now. I'm going to use it to create a new project, so I type ml new, and I'm going to call this my app. And then there are a couple options you can choose to pass in or not. One is whether to use the dev branch or not. By default, you'll get the master branch, so that's the stable version. I'm choosing to go with the latest features, so I'm using the dev branch. The other thing is you can specify the app type. Now you might recall recall that earlier I mentioned that you can do MVC, REST, or hybrid applications. For this example, I'm going to do a hybrid app, so that's going to get me the REST API stuff and also the MVC structure. Okay, so it's created a directory based on the name that I gave it, and inside of that directory it's got a bunch of initial stuff. So let's take a look at what we have. So the deploy directory is the stuff that holds the actual configuration of your project. In particular, the properties files and this mlconfig.xml file. And I'll dive into the contents of those more in a later video. There's also the REST API directory that has some initial options and properties for controlling the MarkLogic REST API. There's a REST ext directory for making extensions to the REST API. Nothing in there yet. And the source directory has the initial MVC source code. So that's if you choose to use that. Also, we have a version.txt file. Version 1.4 is the current version that's on the dev branch. And we've got a change log that shows the major new features and bug fixes that have gone into each release. There's a README file. This is the file that you see when you first go to GitHub and get the you just see the basic page. But we found it to be a good practice to also put some documentation about the application. So you can write something here about the purpose. You know, this application is to and also how to deploy it. So you know, it might just list the basic steps and note that for a lot of projects, you know, these few steps might be enough. But for other projects, we might have CPF, we might have some custom steps, we might be using Record Loader. So when you come back to your project 6 months after you've finished working with it, it's really handy to have that explicit list of here's what you need to do to set it up. And of course, any other developer who picks up your project will appreciate it as well. Now, this format here is Markdown. It's not unique to Roxy at all. So it converts nicely to HTML. Okay, so one of the files in here is build.properties, and you'll notice that it's been seeded with the name you gave the application. It also has the admin username and password, so this needs to be a password, a username and password of a user that has authority to create the applications, typically admin or somebody with the admin role. Now, if you don't want to have the password right in the properties file, that's fine too. You can just delete it, and ML will prompt you for it where it needs it. We also have an initial set of ports here. This is for the HTTP application server and the XCC port, which is used in the deploy process. Now, the problem, of course, right now is that I already have something on 8040 and 8041. So I'm going to change that to some other ports. Okay, and with that, I've got some basic setup. Let's go ahead and push that onto the server. So you'll see that I'm specifying an environment where I want to do something, and I'm specifying the command that I want to run. Now, when I say the local environment, what that does is it looks in here for what is the local server, and by default that's going to be localhost, but it could be any server you want. And likewise, you can do other environments and specify what hosts they should have. Again, more on that in future videos. Now I'm going to push the source code for the application as it exists right now. I'm going to push that into the modules database for the application. So having done the bootstrap, you'll see that I now have my app on port 8030, and MyAppXCC on 8031, along with a content database, a modules database, forest for each, and there's been a user, a MyApp user created that has the MyApp role. So here's the simple out-of-the-box stuff. Now again, this is an MVC basic application. You may choose to go fully with REST. Either way is fine. But let's throw a little bit of content in there just for fun to show how that works. I'm going to create a data directory, and that's the default name for where Roxy is going to look for data. This is all configurable. In here, I'm just going to do a soft link to a data set that came across online. Again, I'm specifying the environment, telling it to deploy. Earlier I said to deploy modules. This time I'm telling it to deploy content. Let's load some stuff up, and there we go. Very basic, simple search results, but it gives you at least something to play with out of the box. From there you could choose to work on customizing the search results, adding some facets, or you might throw the stuff out and build something that's an HTML focused page with some JavaScript. Either way, we've shown that we can get something up and running pretty quickly. And just to complete the cycle, ML local wipe is going to take everything done by Bootstrap and make it go away. Okay. So first thing, it's going to refresh this, and we'll notice that all the MyApp stuff has gone away. But Roxy is telling us that MarkLogic needs to be restarted. This is just part of how MarkLogic works. When you delete an application server, it needs to restart in order to fully remove the application server from memory, from the disk configuration, and everything. So we will tell it to restart. And there we go. Now, having seen that my basic application is good, my basic setup is good, the next thing I want to do, I'm going to initialize a simple Git repository, add everything to it, and just like that, I have a Git repository where everything's been checked in. Ideally, I should have actually done that before I changed the build.properties file, but you get the point. So that's a quick getting started. At this point, if you've followed along, you have the configuration for a simple application and source code for an MVC application, along with configuration for the REST API. More on all those details later on.